90 men walk into the facility in Santa Clara this August, but in just a matter of days, 37 of them are going to be handed their life's work in a trash bag and told their time is up. You can literally feel the heat and the suffocating invisible pressure radiating off this team right now. We're looking at a San Francisco 49ers franchise that is staring down the barrel of a rapidly closing Super Bowl window. They have Brock Purdy on a rookie deal, they have a roster loaded with top-tier, incredibly expensive talent, and the margin for error is zero. Now, if you turn on the national sports networks, the headlines are entirely consumed by the massive contract extensions, the star holdouts, the daily drama surrounding Brandon Ayuk, and the absolute critical future of Trent Williams. But that's just the surface level. The true, raw, cinematic reality of this training camp is playing out deep in the trenches and on the second string. What used to be standard run-of-the-mill August practices have evolved into a desperate, bare-knuckle battle for professional survival. For a few specific players on this roster, guys whose names you might barely know, the margin for error has shrunk to absolutely nothing. One bad step, one blown assignment on a Tuesday afternoon, and their time in the National Football League could be completely over.
And the clock is ticking relentlessly against them. Look at this timeline. With just about 3 weeks remaining until the regular season kicks off, the 49ers still have massive, glaringly unresolved questions buried within their depth chart. Preseason Game 1 is now in the books, and yeah, it provided some crucial preliminary clues. But across the NFL, Preseason Game 2, which in this case is a massive matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers, is historically the ultimate proving ground. This isn't just a tune-up game. It is a high-stakes, live-fire audition. In the agonizing, sweat-soaked window between this upcoming matchup and final cut-down day, front offices and coaching staffs are literally losing sleep. They are poring over practice tape at 2 a.m., desperately trying to evaluate who can actually contribute to a grueling physical championship run in January and who is simply out of time right now. And as we dig into the tape and the reports coming out of camp, there are two specific positional battles where the tension isn't just simmering, it is boiling over into absolute desperation.
So, let's get right into it with Section 1, the linebacker logjam. It's a classic battle of veterans versus youth.
Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, we have a fascinating and incredibly high-stakes battle brewing right behind locked-in starters Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. Now, when you possess arguably the best linebacker duo in all of football, it's easy to dismiss the guys behind them as just clipboard holders, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In this scheme, depth linebackers are vital cogs. They run the special teams units, they provide critical defensive rotations, and they act as absolute emergency insurance during a brutal 17-game schedule. Historically, General Manager John Lynch and this front office have built their entire defensive identity by unearthing absolute gems in the later rounds of the draft. I mean, Warner himself was a third-round pick and Greenlaw was a fifth. So naturally, the front office desperately wants their recent draft investments, guys like Jaden Duggar, Nick Martin, and Tatum Bethune, to step up and win these depth roles. It validates their extensive scouting process, it justifies the draft capital they spend, and crucially, it saves the franchise heavily needed salary cap space. But here's the catch. Defensive coaches operate on a completely different frequency. They do not care about draft pedigree. They don't care about the salary cap. They care about who can execute the scheme without surrendering a back-breaking, game-losing play when the stadium lights come on. And right now, the established veterans Luke Gifford and Garrett Wallow are unexpectedly and undeniably outplaying the youth movement.
The 49ers coaching staff is subtly showing their hand without speaking a single word to the media. You just have to know how to read the signs. Veterans Gifford and Wallow have showcased immense practical value. Look at Gifford. He was literally benched alongside the rest of the locked-in defensive starters during the preseason opener. In the NFL, being told you aren't playing in early August is the ultimate compliment. It means your job is safe. You're too valuable to risk injuring. He operates as the starting Sam linebacker in their base packages, which is a role that demands extreme discipline to set the physical edge against heavy tight ends, and he absolutely dominates on special teams. Meanwhile, Wallow actually started that preseason opener, but he was the very first starter pulled from the field. And listen, this wasn't a demotion, it was preservation. With his previous playoff experience and known reliability on special teams, the coaching staff simply wanted to get the raw rookies more reps so they could evaluate them. Being pulled early means the coaches trust him implicitly. Wallow isn't really fighting for a spot on the team anymore. He's solidifying his place high up in the defensive hierarchy, which spells massive trouble for the young guys.
Because if Gifford and Wallow are completely locked in as the third and fourth linebackers, the mathematical reality becomes terrifying for these draft picks. NFL teams rarely, if ever, keep 7 linebackers on an active 53-man roster. It just doesn't make sense for roster construction. If they only keep 6, at least one of these drafted players is going to receive a devastating phone call very soon. Let's break this down. Tatum Bethune, a former 7th-round pick entering his 3rd year, actually had starting opportunities last season, but he is now fighting tooth and nail for his professional life. Then there is Nick Martin, who is the ultimate wild card in this whole scenario. Drafted in the 3rd round just last year, he represents a major financial and strategic investment for John Lynch. But entering his 2nd season, he has completely failed to separate himself from the pack. Cutting a 3rd-round pick in year 2 is a massive admission of failure by a general manager. It carries dead cap penalties, it's terrible optics, and GMs hate doing it. But the pressure is compounding daily because of Jaden Duggar, the 5th-round rookie. Duggar possesses shiny, new, unproven upside, immense versatility, and he was handpicked by the current iteration of this defensive coaching staff. The walls are rapidly closing in on Bethune and Martin because Duggar might just be the potential star the team absolutely refuses to expose to the waiver wire.
But listen, while the defense possesses a logjam of incredibly capable talent fighting for too few spots, we have to pivot right now and ask a far more terrifying question about the offensive trenches. Because the cold, hard reality of the National Football League is incredibly simple. It absolutely does not matter how elite your defense is or how many all-pro weapons you have catching passes on the outside if your franchise quarterback is getting crushed into the turf before he can even finish his drop back.
And that brings us to Section 2. The left guard crisis. Desperation in the trenches.
A genuine 5-alarm crisis has emerged at the starting left guard position for San Francisco. Think about where this spot is. It is directly adjacent to future first-ballot Hall of Fame left tackle Trent Williams. In Kyle Shanahan's famously complex, mathematically precise offense, the left side of the line is sacred real estate. It serves as the primary driving force for their legendary outside zone run game. To play guard in this system, you need elite lateral quickness to reach and seal massive 300-pound defensive tackles on the move. Furthermore, keeping the interior clean is absolutely paramount for quarterback Brock Purdy to be able to step up into the pocket and deliver the ball on time. And right now, the 49ers are staring into a massive void. Connor Colby was handed the initial golden opportunity to take this job, but he has drastically failed to seize the moment. He is actively bleeding first-team reps, and the coaching staff is clearly, visibly, moving away from him. Then you have Robert Jones, a player who is deeply familiar with the system, but he is struggling mightily right now, and is only splitting the leftover reps. Neither established option has proven remotely capable of securing the job. The franchise is desperate for a solution, and I'll tell you this, when an NFL front office gets desperate regarding the interior offensive line in late August, it is usually a massive precursor to disaster.
Which leads us to Section 3, a rookie's last hope, the uphill battle of Carver Willis.
What makes this situation a truly cinematic NFL underdog story is that the 49ers are now turning to a rookie, Carver Willis, as their absolute last hope to stabilize this critical starting left guard spot. Think about what they are doing here. They are essentially bypassing the failing veterans and placing the immense weight of a Super Bowl window's interior protection squarely onto the shoulders of a kid who is still just trying to adjust to the blinding speed of the pro game. Willis faces a monumental, almost mathematically impossible task. First off, he was primarily an offensive tackle in college. The 49ers drafted him with this grand vision of kicking him inside to guard. To understand how difficult this transition is, playing tackle on the edge is about operating in space against speed rushers. Playing guard is like fighting inside a phone booth while a car crash happens around you. You are instantly engaged with 320-pound defensive tackles the millisecond the ball is snapped. The leverage is entirely different. Your processing speed must be lightning fast to pick up complex inside stunts and blitzes. Add to this the overwhelming task of learning Kyle Shanahan's incredibly intricate blocking rules. And to make matters exponentially worse, Willis lost vital, irreplaceable developmental time due to a concussion early in training camp. Taking a college tackle, moving him to NFL guard, and then subtracting those absolutely vital August reps creates a painfully steep, almost vertical uphill climb.
Head coach Kyle Shanahan's own words to the media perfectly encapsulate the immense, crushing pressure squarely on this rookie's shoulders. When an NFL head coach publicly states to a microphone that a young player is behind the 8-ball, it serves as both a motivational challenge to the player and a stark, flashing warning siren to the fan base. Coaches use the media strategically. They don't just say things to hear their own voice. Shanahan did note the positive step of Willis stringing together a full week of practice without any major setbacks, but he emphasized a truly terrifying timeline. They only have about 2 weeks to make a final decision on his capabilities. 14 days. That is literally all the time this rookie has to prove he can protect the franchise's most valuable offensive assets against the most lethal pass rushers on the planet before the organization is forced to look elsewhere and hit the panic button.
For Willis, the immediate path forward is grueling, but it is incredibly clearly defined. Step 1. He has to take the field and take the starting interior snaps in preseason Game 2 against the Chargers. He can't shrink from the moment. Step 2. He must show consistent positive signs and, above all else, absolute stability. Listen, He doesn't need to look like a perennial all-pro immediately. He just needs to prove he processes the game fast enough that he won't be a catastrophic liability that gets his quarterback physically injured. If he can execute Step 2, he achieves Step 3, preventing the 49ers from desperately seeking outside replacements. If he fails this test, the team hits the big red panic button. They will be forced to scour the waiver wire, calling around the league, trying to orchestrate a trade for someone else's backup. And in the NFL, bringing in an outside guy in late August means cutting someone currently in that locker room who bled and sweated through all of training camp, a move that sends a massive shockwave of anxiety through the entire roster culture.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, the ultimate proving ground, preseason Game 2 versus the Chargers.
All of this intense bubbling pressure, all of these intersecting storylines funneled directly into the joint practices and the upcoming second preseason game against Los Angeles. And the Chargers, operating under a very physical, downhill philosophy, boast a nasty, aggressive defensive front that is going to ruthlessly test the absolute limits of every single player on the 49ers roster bubble. The lights come on here, the hitting is real. So, as a focused fan, someone who really wants to understand the game within the game, your checklist for this explainer is crystal clear. Don't just watch the ball, watch the narrative unfolding in the trenches. Track the specific snap counts for those veterans, Gifford and Wallow. If they sit early again, their bags are practically packed and loaded for Week 1. Watch the visceral, violent battle for survival between Tatum Bethune and Nick Martin, where a single missed tackle in the flat or one blown gap assignment on a run play could literally be the difference between a multi-million-dollar career and falling out of the league entirely. And most importantly, zero in and monitor Carver Willis on every single repetition at left guard. These aren't just practice reps anymore, these are the foundational moments that will dictate the ceiling of this entire offense.
As the clock rapidly winds down toward Final Cut Day, we are left staring at the ultimate franchise-altering question. Will these bubble players rise to the incredible occasion and solidify this roster from the inside out? Or will the 49ers front office be forced to take drastic outside measures to patch up their offensive line before Week 1? Are we just witnessing typical run-of-the-mill August hurdles, or are these the very first critical cracks in the foundation of a Super Bowl favorite? The answers are coming incredibly fast, and they are going to be permanent. Before we find out exactly how this plays out on the field, make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus. We are building the smartest football community on the internet. Drop a like on this explainer, get down in the comments, and let me know your opinion. Who do you think survives these brutal roster battles? And if you want to take it a step further, support the channel by becoming a member. We bring you the absolute deep dive into the real cinematic stories shaping the league. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next explainer.